Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I build my daily watch list. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all of the news sites that I utilize and then decide what stocks I'm going to trade for the day. I do want to let you guys know that I do have a watch list of about 20 to 25 stocks that I trade frequently or that I'm familiar with or that I've traded before, that I've charted before. And when I'm looking for news, I'm looking for news based off of that watch list, any stocks that I currently have on my main watch list. Sometimes I'll trade random stocks if they have certain moves or earnings or announcements or if they're rallying. But most of the time, I'm sticking solely to that main watch list. So yeah, I'll go ahead and go through all the news sites that I use. And yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first site that I look at is Seeking Alpha, and I do want to let you guys know that I usually start looking at news around 8:15, 8:30. The later you start to look at news, the better, because you want to get the most updated news possible. So if you're looking at news too early, you could miss news that comes out right before the market opens or a little bit later in the morning. So I used to start really early, like around 7:30, but I was missing updated news, so then I stopped, and now I don't start until about 8:15, 8:30, and then I'll start looking at what news is out there. So the first site that I use, and I actually use the apps for all of these. I don't use the site itself except for Market Watch, which I'll show you in a minute. The apps are just easier to use. So the first application that I use is Seeking Alpha, and on Seeking Alpha, all I really do is look at the overall news. This has all of the news on any stock that you could potentially want to trade or anything. You could search it by the ticker symbol up here, or what I like to do, I just go to latest news and click that, which is this right here, and it's just a live feed of all of the news. And on the app, it'll actually have the ticker symbol down here too. So if you just want to scroll through and look for the ticker symbol that you're familiar with, you can do that too. Or I'll just like kind of skim through this and see what the news is on all of these stocks. And so on and so forth. It also tells you like the top gainers over here, top losers. You could also set alerts with Seeking Alpha. So if you want to create a watch list and set alerts on those watch lists, it'll alert you. The only thing with Seeking Alpha is it is a little bit delayed with the news. That's why the alerts, I don't know, the alerts really aren't that helpful to me because it's pretty delayed compared to like what you see on Thinkorswim or Benzinga or anything like that. So the stock has already made its move by the time you get the alert. But for morning news, it's really, really helpful. So that's the first app that I use. The next next site that I use, and I actually use this site, is Market Watch. So what I'll do is I have this bookmarked, but what you can do is if you go to Google and you type in upgrades and downgrades, and this is how I found this. I just typed in upgrades and downgrades, and the first link that comes up is Market Watch. So if you click on it, it takes you to pretty much all the upgrades and downgrades for the day. You want to make sure that the date is on the current date that you're watching for the morning, and then I'll change this to downgrades and then click it again. It'll change to upgrades because that's all I'm worried about. I'm not worried about reinstates, reiterates, or anything like that. I pay attention to the company and then the analyst firm that has done the upgrade or downgrade, because some analyst firms have more push than others, like those bigger banks like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan are going to have more push on their upgrades and downgrades versus some of those smaller firms. So you want to pay attention to whether it's upgraded or downgraded. So I'll scroll through for the day and see if I know any of these stocks or if I'm familiar with any of them. And then I'll check again the downgrades. So this morning, I actually put SPCE on my watch list because it was downgraded by both Credit Suisse and Morgan Stanley. So that was on my watch list this morning. And what I'll actually do if I do see news or anything like that, since I'm going through every site back to back, I'll write down the ticker symbol, the news that I found on a notepad. So then when I go back and I'm setting alerts or I'm charting my stocks, I know what the news was for that stock, and you're not going back and forth between your news sites and your Thinkorswim or whatever platform that you use. The next app that I use is called StockTwits. I actually go on this first, not Seeking Alpha, because I only look at one thing here, and that's what's trending. I like to look at this because it pretty much kind of shows you what's moved pre-market and after-market hours, and then you can kind of work backwards off of that and see why they've moved, what the news behind it was. So these are all the stocks that are trending. Usually the stocks that are trending have just moved pre-market and after market hours, but it's really pretty helpful to kind of get an overall gist of what's moving in the market and what sometimes these stocks have the most volume as well. So they have really nice potential plays throughout the day. So if I'm familiar with any of these stocks on here, if I have them on my main watch list, I'll watch them for the day. So the last site that I go to is Bloomberg, and for Bloomberg, I'm looking at overall market, economic, world news. It's really important to pay attention to what's going on because that could have an impact in the market and what's going on in the market. So what the hell? So the last site that I go on is Bloomberg, and on Bloomberg, all I'm really looking for is overall economic news. It's really important to pay attention to what's going on in the world because, for example, right now, the market just closed. For example, right now, all the coronavirus news, market's selling off, and previously was the China and U.S. news, the tariff news. So all of that type of stuff has impact on the market. So you really want to pay attention to what's going on in the world because it does have an impact. Right, so once I have that set, I'll go ahead and go on to my Thinkorswim, and I'll pull up every single stock that had news. I'll pull it up, look at the chart it, set alerts, whatever I have to do. I also really like to look at the news on Thinkorswim. It's the most updated and accurate news in my opinion. So I'll pull up the stock here, and it just says live news on Apple. You can actually detach this if you want to look at it like this and place it wherever you want, and you can look up pretty much any stock. You just pull it up and it'll show you the most up-to-date news, and I think this is the most accurate out of all of the news sites to look at. I just look at everything else just to see, because sometimes they don't have like upgrades and downgrades or just little news that they might miss. You can catch on other sites too. So it's really important to kind of use all of them together. That's why I use so many sites. So it's really important to find a stock with a strong catalyst when you're putting it on your watch list. So that's why I like to use so many different news sources to make sure I get everything that I need to know for the day. But I have found that the Thinkorswim news itself is the most accurate and it's the most up-to-date. So you guys could also use this as well. I think most of their news is pulled from Benzinga, so it updates a lot faster than any of the other apps that I've used. So that's pretty much it on the news that I use. Those are the sites that I utilize. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you want daily content, you can follow my social media sites. I do post my trade breakdowns, entries and exits, and my daily watch list on all of my social media sites. And I'll see you guys in next week's video.